there's a few of us. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Ange. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Maura. Hi, Alison. Hi, Tracy Elson. Hi. Hi, Mum. Oh, lovely. This is so strange still, but there we go. Hi, Marcia. Hi, Denny. Hi, Liz. Hi, Tana. I just give it a few more seconds and then I'll get on. Hi, Annie. Oh, lovely. Well, I thought I'd do a little bit tonight on a journal spread I did, and we're gonna look at. Oh, thank you very much, Tracy. Yeah, thank you. We're gonna look at using some of the watercolours, just a little bit of sort of watercolour work, and we're going to look at colouring the face and using the rice paper, and then a bit of stenciling in the background. So that's my plan, and to just look at the watercolours a little bit and explore them a little bit. I mean, there's an awful lot to look at with them. But I just thought we could look at a few little areas with them. So what I'll do is I'll get started. I'll pop you down. Let's just double check I've got you in the right place. And I think you're in the right place. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so what I want to do first, before I look at anything else, is to adhere one of these lovely images. And if you've not done this before, it's really simple. You just wet your brush and go around the edges, and you do this with any of these rice papers, any elements you want to remove. A really easy way to do it is to just wet your brush and go around the edges where you want to remove it, and then you'll be able to just pull it away where you've wet it. And when you've got a rough edge stuck down, it gives you a much nicer finish, oddly. I know that sounds really mad, and you would think, well, surely cutting it would give a nicer finish. but oddly, when you cut it, it looks really obvious. Whereas if you do this ripping method, it sort of blends in. So there we go. I'm just going to take that little bit of excess there. There we go. So there we go. I've got my image there. And then what I'm going to use to stick this onto my surface is I'm using a matte gel, and there's loads of different brands, and most of them do a smashing job. I've not come across one that I didn't like, and so all I do, whoops, is just cover the back with some matte gel. Some people like to cover the page and the paper, but I'm finding that this is enough for me. Now, the reason we're going to do this first is so that it dries while we're doing the other bits. So there we go. All matte mediumed up. And the other thing, I don't tend to put things in the centre if I can possibly help it. I like to put things just off centre because I think it adds a little bit of interest. So I rarely put things on the centre, and then I'm just using a little bit more matte medium, and I'm going around the edges and on top and just making sure I've got a little air bubble there, so I'm just pushing that out as much as I can. There we go. With my, this is my grotty old brush that I use for all the mediums and things that I have, and it's one of the cheapest, nastiest brushes ever, and it works a dream every time. There we go. I've lost a little bit of the detail there where I've been scrubbing so hard, but it's all good. So I'll leave that to dry. Pop that out of the way. Now, as if by magic, in my lovely journal, I do have one prepared and ready, which I'll go to in a bit. But if you're doing it along with me, you know, we're going to be chatting for a little moment here about watercolours and doing some other little bits that we're going to add to the page. So there should be plenty of time for it to dry, but I just didn't want to take any chances. So I suppose there is so much to cover in watercolours, but one of the things, well, a few of the things actually that will give you good results is, one of the things is good paper. So use a decent paper, and one that's got a little bit of absorbency to it. The smooth cardstocks and things are great for stamping on and using inks on, and you can use watercolours on them, but you won't get the results that you'll get from using a watercolour paper. So that's worth remembering. And the other thing that's worth remembering is brushes. Now, this is sadly my favourite brush in the whole world, and it's a Van Gogh brush, and I can't find another one, and I'm about due for a new one. But my watercolour brushes I keep separate from any of my, these are my serious watercolour brushes, my Preciouses, and I keep them separate from any of my other brushes. I don't use them for anything else other than watercolours. These are my ones I use for everything else. And this little one I keep on my desk, and I use it if ever I'm using watercolours or like a water soluble ink, something like that, because it needs this sort of brush. But once you've used acrylics with this sort of brush, it will lose its I don't know what you call it, its point, its shape, and it will become a very different type of brush. So that's why it's important to keep your watercolour brushes separate. So that's your brushes and the paper. And if you've got those covered, then you're pretty sorted. Now I'm going to use the Art by Marlene watercolour palettes, and I have to say I've got a lot of watercolours, and lots of different brands. I love Daniel Smith. I've got lots of Daniel Smith. I've got all kinds anyway, and I'm not bragging, I just have. And I have to say that these watercolours are fantastic, and I cannot believe the quality and the pigment for the price. And I'm not endorsed by anybody to say that. That's just my honest opinion as somebody who has used watercolours a lot. They are excellent, and I've had, you know, as good a result from these as any. So I'm going to use those. Now, some people like to spray water on their watercolours to activate them before they get started. Hi Terry, hi. And you can, you know, that's great when you're doing if you're doing a big piece, that's a really good idea, to get them juicy and get them ready. But for the little pieces we're going to be doing, it's neither here nor there whether we spray it or not. So what is a really nice idea when you starting off to do anything really, any sort of drawing, if you're learning to draw a particular thing, if you're learning to use a new medium, a nice thing to do is to do small little pieces, and then it's not an overwhelming thing, and it's also then it's not the end of the world if it goes wrong, because it's only a small little piece. So as you remember, if you don't remember, I'll just quickly show you. On the page I did, I've got my 3 little watercolours there. And how I did those, better open that up, otherwise I'll have pages sticking together, that'll be fun. How I did that is I just did this, and I used the new stamps. Oh, that's the wrong packaging, isn't it? Oh, that was clever. There we go. These ones, they come with a little frame to stamp, which is brilliant. So I've stamped the frame and I've cut it out because it's quite nice to just do your own little painting and then put the frame on. It just gives a nicer effect than actually just going straight into the middle. And it also means that if you're not happy with what you do on that little piece, you can flip it over and do it again. So I've cut myself out a few of these little frames because they're just nice to play with and do all kinds of things with. So that's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started, and if you, I don't know if you're doing it along with me or not, but I'm going to use one of these Luscious stamps because I can't help myself, and just quickly stamp myself. If I can find, there we go. I've just got some little, these tulips here, and I'm just going to stamp them in various angles. And you know, I mean, gosh, you could do a whole plethora of these and just play with watercolors all day long, because there are so many different effects you can get. We really are. I mean, gosh, we're hardly going to scratch the surface tonight. So I'm just giving the ink just a little chance to get into the paper, and that's in particular with watercolor paper. I mean, this has got a slight grain to it. This is the this is Pink Frog watercolour card, and I've got to say it's alright, it's pretty good. You know, I mean, it's not the creme de la creme, of course it's not for the price you're paying, but it's pretty good. It's very, well, in fact it's very good value. But then I find their card stock is good, and again, I'm not affiliated, that's just my opinion. You might have a completely different opinion. But as I was saying, when you're stamping onto a watercolour card, just take a little bit of time to allow the ink to get in there. And if you're not sure about your stamping, particularly on watercolour card, use a stamping platform, and that way then, if it doesn't stamp fully the first time, it's easy enough to get back in there and go back over it and get a decent image. So all is not lost. So what have I done? I've got one in the middle, one going that way. I have one going, oh, that'll be the same way, won't it? Of course it will. Right, that way. Oh, I want to try those ones as well. I'd be very interested to try the other Studio Light watercolours. Sorry, I just looked up and saw a little bit of conversation. Yeah, no, I would be really interested to try those. But I don't think we've had them. We don't, yeah, well, I haven't seen them here yet. And I'm normally a bit of a magpie when it comes to watercolours. Right, so I've stamped my images. I've got my watercolours. I've got my watercolour card that I'm using. I've got my brush that I'm happy with that I'm using. And your other best friend is going to be kitchen roll. Now, when I'm watercolouring, I always like to have a piece in my hand, always. And if I'm doing a lot of stamping, I do as well, because, you know, some ink pads can be quite juicy, and it's always worth having a little blot just to be on the safe side. But with watercolours, kitchen roll and water are going to be your best friend, because if you go over the edges, if you make a mistake, if you put a bit of paint somewhere you don't want it, if you're using half decent watercolour paper, half decent watercolour paints, you'll be able to lift it back out, and it's fabulous. It's a really, you know, makes life an awful lot easier. So let's start with a little bit of painting. Now, I'm going to slide you over just a little smidgeroo so you can see. Now, I was going to get my fancy schmancy ceramic palette out, but I thought, well, no, because if I'm doing stuff like that, I don't use my fancy schmancy ceramic palette. What I do is I just do everything onto my glass mat. And I do this if I'm using aqua pastels or sometimes, what do you call it, Eholine pens, any of those sort of pens, I'll scribble onto my glass mat and then use my brush to lift them up and use them like watercolours. So anyway, right, so I've taken the paint, and this is another thing. Never go straight from the palette. I'm saying never, do what you like, but if you want good results, don't go straight from the palette to your paper. I would rarely do that, because you will never know what sort of intensity you're going to get. And like I said, these paints have got a really good pigment in them. You don't want to overpower it. You don't want to go mad. And with your first little application of paint, less is more. So you can see the amount I've got there. I've got a nice bit of water. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dab my brush on my tissue, just to make sure that I haven't got too much water on there. And then I'm going to start painting. I'm just going to do one straight layer here. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just going to do one light wash. And on this little one as well, just one light wash. Now watercolours dry pretty quickly. And so what we can do is we can go over again and add more detail. It's a technique, it's called glazing technique. So there we go, I've got my one thin wash. So that's going to dry pretty quickly. That's pretty dry. And then what I can do then is, even with the same colour if I want, or I can add a slightly darker tone to it. And again, I'm bringing it to my mat. And now, with an image like this, you can see there are little marks where you can go darker. So I'm just going to take that just a little bit darker there. And a little bit darker there. Because if I put darker edges to this, it's going to make the shape look slightly more round, because it's like the light is hitting the middle. So, and I'm moistening my brush, and I'm going to wipe it on my tissue, and I'm just going to come back in and I'm going to blend that just really gently. Blend the colour. And I can take a little bit more of the dark colour and add a little bit more. And just take my time. There's no rush. Just take my time and enjoy the process. Obviously not me personally now, because you're here with me and we're on a mission. But I am enjoying it. I am enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it. I'm just not taking as long as I would normally. So there you go. I've got some more of the darker colour, and because I've dipped my brush in the water and in the paint, I'm just going to give it a little dip on the tissue, just because I want to make sure that I'm not saturating this little piece right now. So there we go. And you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but I've gone outside the line a bit there, and I'm not particularly that bothered about it, but it's a good opportunity to show you now. I'm going to dip. Can you see what I'm doing? No, you can't. Right. This is my little water pot. I'm going to dip my brush in the water pot so it's clean. I'm just running my fingers over it to maintain the shape. I've got it on the tissue, and so I've got quite a dry brush, and what I can do is I can just go up to the edge there, and I can remove that little bit of watercolour that had come out to the edge that was bothering me. So that's that. So then I can take some green. There we go. So this is a really nice basic little, I don't know what you call it, colorization. Nice and basic, and not doing anything too mad. So we'll do something a little different with the next one because we've got the opportunity, because we've got all of these little pieces of card and all of these frames. So there we go, you can see what I've done there. So what I'm going to do now as well is I am going to just take quite a bit of paint and mix it with some water, and then I'm just going to flick it on here because it just gives a little something, and I'll get some of the green as well and do the same. Not quite enough water there. Yeah, it's going to do it where I don't want it to, but it's all good. It all adds to the effect. So there we go, there's one of my little watercolours. So for the next one, what we'll do is it's called a wet on wet technique. So what we'll do is we'll take the paintbrush, and it's wet, it's got some water on, and we'll just paint the areas that we want to have colour in. So take a little bit of time and try and stay in the lines, because wherever it's wet now is where the colour is going to end up going. So I've just done the flower heads, and I'm going to go for some orange with this one. Hi Joe, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Right, so I've got some orange, and I'm going to put this on, and you'll see it's gonna move. It's gonna move where the water is. You can see it moving. And when you've got a good watercolor paper, that's when you get some really amazing effects doing this. So there we go. So I've done the orange, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some yellow. I love this. It's called Sunny Days, and it's just the nicest yellow. There we go. So I'm going to take some yellow now, and I'm going to pop that in. And because we've got those wet areas, it's all going to kind of blend and do interesting things. There we go. So, and something we can do to make that more interesting if we want to is we can sprinkle some rock salt on that and leave it to dry, and it will do some, oh, it does some amazing things. It does some, I don't think I've got anything, I haven't got anything to hand I can show you, I don't think. But it gives a lovely effect, because where the lumps of rock salt are, it draws the moisture up, so you get like these little patches which are really interesting. So that's a lovely effect. But I'm just going to stick, or we can wait for this to dry and then we can go back in with a glaze like we did with the other one. There's lots of different things we can do. I'm just going to paint the green stalks on here. I did exactly what I said I don't do then. There we go. And then I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to do some little splashes, so a little bit of wet. And just bear in mind with this one, it's going to be a lot wetter than the last one. So when we move it, it's going to be a lot wetter. So there we go. That's number 2. And then we've got our third and final. Let's have a think. I think we will do another wet on wet actually, because we need to get on and get doing this face ideally. So there we go. I'm gonna just paint water, although my water's getting a little bit grubby. Paint water on my flower where I want colour. Then I'm going to take paint and put that on my flower. Oh, I love tulips. I'll tell you, the flowers in the Netherlands are something else, aren't they? They really are. I mean, even if you just Google them and look, they are something else. There we go. Let's put some more colour in there. Just splodges. And you'll see them just grow and move and do their own thing. And you don't get to see the real effects until it's dry. And it's, you know, it's a real treat, I think. That's one of the things I really like about watercolours. I really like when it's dry and you get to look at it and think, wow, you know, the paint sort of has a life of its own and does its own thing. Right, let's get some splodges going on here. There we go, and a little bit of purple. There we go. So I've got my 3 little paintings, which I'm very happy with. There we go. And let's do that. I'm just going to have a little look. Oh, I can't resist them, Marlene. I can't resist them. I do try, but they are irresistible. And I was just saying, I don't know what you know about them. Well, probably quite a lot because they're yours. But the pigment in your paints, in your watercolours, is astonishing for the price. Absolutely astonishing. It's so good. And I, like I said, I don't want to bore everybody, but I've tried quite a few, and it's really good. Right, so the one I stuck earlier, she's nearly dry, but we'll leave her for now. I'm gonna go with this one. So I don't know how many of you have a face, and I'm just gonna make sure we've got her in there. Have a face or have a face stamp, and feel a little bit intimidated about adding the colour. So that was something I know has been mentioned to me by a few people, so I just wanted to do a little bit of that on camera as well. So my water is looking awfully grubby. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. I've got some in a spray if I really need it. Right, so when I've got a face stamp, or even when I've drawn a face, or these rice papers, I just start with very light colours to start off with, and I don't go straight in there with any sort of skin tone, whether it's light skin tone, dark skin tone, whatever. I don't go straight in with a skin tone. First of all, I like to add some shading. Now these rice papers have got some shading, which is very nice, and a nice guide. But I'm going to start off, I'm going to take some of the pink, And again, I'm taking it to my glass mat. I'm not going straight from the palette onto the face. I'm taking just little bits of colour. It only takes just little bits of colour. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this where the shadowy areas of the face are. It's a slightly different texture to the watercolour paper, but it's fine. And again, you can see I've hardly used any, but the pigment in these paints is so good, it's so strong. So I'm just going to use a little bit more, and I'm going to come in around the eye area. You can see there's some shadow here anyway, but I'm just going to come in just a little bit. And it all looks a bit odd at the moment, and you know, sometimes when I do this I'll start with like a purple and it really looks odd, but it's honestly, it's absolutely fine. It all ends up just fine in the end. There we go. So I'm just bringing it in ever so gently, and really, I'm really using hardly any paint at all. There's a little blob come out there, just because of the texture of the paper, but that's fine. And just under her eyes as well, I'm going to take some of this pink too. And when the nature of this paper, the rice paper, is that sometimes you will get blotches and areas where there are more fibres basically. And that's why if you just add little amounts of paint and just take your time and just add more water, if you find you've got an area that's gone a bit mad. There we go. And I'm going to do this area here. So you can see where I'm adding it. I'm adding the paint where the natural shadowy areas would be. There we go. And a little bit more. There we go. Bear with me. That's it. I mean, she's got beautiful shading anyway. But if we want to colorise her, well, this is how we can do it. Alright, so I've done that. Then I'm going to go for probably, what colour do I want? I mean, the thing is, faces have got so many different colours in them. So many different colours, it's quite mad. I'm actually going to pop, I've got a little bit of yellow. Just a little bit of yellow. I'm going to pop some of that there as well. And I'm going to go for some blue. And I'm doing all of this, and I haven't gone anywhere near any skin tone colours yet. Okay, oh, and I've missed a little bit of pink on her nose. That's it. Keep it very gentle because, you know, she doesn't want to look too much like a clown. I'll pop a little bit more yellow there. Right, now I'm going to go for, probably I'm going to go for a Caucasian skin tone. So now, with this palette, there is a, there's a colour called Bare Skin, which blends really well with lots of other colours. To be pretty much most people's bare skin, you can blend it with the darker tones and the lighter tones and create whatever skin tone you want to go for. It just gives you a nice base. And there we go. Don't forget the ears. And a little bit more of that. And then I'm going to come back in a minute. You can see I've just, there we go. I'm not too bothered about that. I do want to keep that heart there. There we go. And then I'm going to give her slightly rosier cheeks now that I can get more of an idea of what's going on with everything else. And just remember how we did with those tulips where we dried the brush off a little bit and blended it back. There we go. Unless you want, if you want a defined line, go for a defined line. But if you want to blend it, just rinse and dry your brush off a little bit and then come back in. So she's looking so cute. Now what I found with the last girl I did is because these areas on the rice paper, depending on where the fibres are, they do, some of them, as you can see, they do pick up more. What I found is when the paint fully dried, these blended in more. It is, I mean, it's the nature of the paper, it's what it's going to do. But they do, you know, as you can see with the one I did there, they do, it does all, it dries out. Right, let's give her some green eyes. There we go. Some lippy. Let's go full red lip, I think. Oh, thank you, Mian. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I love it when you look at it and it's they're popping out of the page. Right, there we go. We've got some lips and everything's happening. So we've got the hair to do, and I want to do some highlighting as well, but we'll do that afterwards. Right, hair. Oh, I quite fancy some blue here. So again, with these rice papers, they've been magically made, and they do have did you see me then going straight from the pad? Because I knew I had a big area to cover. It's terrible, isn't it? What was I going to say? Sorry, I was distracted by my own ramblings. Yes, the rice papers, that's what I was saying. They've been shaded, so it's really nice. You can get some, you know, you can look like an absolute pro with very little effort yourself. There we go. So I'm not going to get too detailed on the hair. I think we'll save that for another live, because there are so many ways of getting effects on hair and braids and highlights and all kinds of things like that, that it's really a whole nother, well, at least at least one whole other session. You know, there is a lot. But, right, there we go. She's got some hair, and then what I tend to do is I use a posture pen, and I use this in all of my highlighting work really, and I'll put a little bit above the eyes, and there's a highlight on these eyes, so it's not really needed that much. Then a little bit on the nose, and then a little trick to add a bit of depth to the face, is that the right word? Is to just pop a little line. Just pop a little line at the middle, because that's where the light hits your face naturally. There we go, and you can leave it or smudge it in, and then that little ball on the nose. And if you wanted to, you can pop little bits on the nostrils, because you would have highlights there naturally. And I like to do just a little bit on the lip as well, and sometimes on the full trim. Right, there she is, bless her. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I did this already because I didn't know if you would be doing stuff along with me, or just watching, or what the case would be. But I've stamped this windmill, and then I've sort of had a look at the line of her hair-ish. You know, I haven't, it's not perfect by any means, but I had a look at the line of her hair-ish, and cut the bottom of the windmill, and I'm going to find some glue and just stick that on a minute. So, get that on. And once I've done that, I shall look at doing the background. So let's pop. Don't ask me why she's got a windmill coming out of her head. It just seemed like a good idea. I just liked it. You know, the other one's got houses, this one's got a windmill, and you know, why not? So that's that. So the next thing is the background, and I have used, no great surprise here, one of Marlene's stencils. I do use other products, honestly, I do, but I'm just a little bit in love with these at the moment. And what I do is I just pop it over and you can see her face. You can see the face through this. So I don't mask her face off, and that way then as well I can use some of the edging colouring where it touches the edges. I'll use that for shading. But if you're not comfortable with that, if you're worried that you're just going to hash it all up, then use a post-it note or cut yourself a post-it note. I know, yeah, windmills are very mine. Yeah. Yeah, cover her up with something if you're nervous that you're gonna go over her. But honestly, you can see through, so you might go over the edges a tiny bit, but you'll be able to blend that in and it will become part of the picture. So now I'm just going to do this with some Distress Oxides I'm going to use, and some blending brushes. Now you can just buy, let me get these out of the way a second. You can just buy soft makeup brushes in, I'm lucky I just happen to have these. But you can buy makeup blending brushes from, what's it called now? It's not because I don't know it, I go there all the time, it's because my brain loses words. The Home Bargain Shop, that's the one. They do apparently really good makeup brushes, like with exactly the same sort of texture as these, that you can use to blend inks. So anyway, onwards with the interesting stuff. So I'm going to start with a lighter colour, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold my stencil in place. If you're not comfortable with that, then you can always tape it down. But I'm happy to just live life on the edge and see what happens. And you know, sometimes interesting things happen when you make mistakes. So I'm just sort of lobbing this around, and then I'm going to go with the orange. I've just chosen these colours because I just, you know, I like them. There's no interesting colour theory going on other than I just kind of like them and I think they look good together. So I'm just, you know, obviously I'm just being a little bit more careful when I know I can see that I'm coming close to the face or the windmill, because I don't want to go over them. And what should we go next? Pink. Well, I can see I've gone over the windmill sail a bit there, but it's going to be okay. There we go. We're getting them. Now, we're moving on. We're nearly there. Right. Now the darker colours are going to add a shade to it, so just be aware of that. And there we go, the last one I'm going to do is this blue. Sorry, have I dragged this out? I do apologise. I'm just concentrating while I'm holding this stencil in place. It probably would have been sensible to tape it down, but sensible is not my middle name. Right, so there we go. And I'm taking this, the blue, I'm taking over, as you can see, just in case you were wondering, a lot of it, but I'm doing it quite gently, and what it's doing is it's catching the edges of the stencil, and it will create a little bit of shadow on the lighter areas. There we go. So there we go, we have not done too badly at all in terms of ending up going on her. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wet brush, got it wet, and then I'm just taking some of the excess water off, and I'm just going on to the head where some of the inks come over, and what I'm doing is I'm just blending away some of the definition that was there. Now I haven't got as much ink as I was imagining I was going to get coming here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smush my ink pad onto the glass mat and take some of that colour for her top. Oh no, the rice paper's really soaking that up actually. Just need to be a bit mindful of that. Let me just loosen that up a little bit there. That's better. Right, so I'm happy with her there like that. The next thing for me is to decide where I want to put my little watercolours. So I'm gonna go this one in the middle. That one up top, and then, oh, thank you, Tracy. Oh, thank you, Terry. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, it's really achievable. It's, you know, it's really achievable. So I've done that, and then I'm going to get my little frames, and with these little frames now, they really don't need, and what you'll find is there'll be things that you're putting in your journal or that you're colouring that really all they need is a little hint of colour. They don't really need masses of colour, and we think we have to colour all the way around things, and actually we really don't. So I'm just getting a little bit of grey watercolour there on my watercolour brush, and I'm just going to pop just a hint of it in this section here. That's all I'm going for. I'm not going edge to edge with it or anything like that. It's just a hint. It's a hint that there's colour, and that just, you know, will look as if it's been shaded, which I suppose it has really. It's been shaded lightly with watercolour. There we go. Just a hint, nothing more than that. I'm not not going edge to edge. I'm just starting in one corner and then letting it peter out. There we go. So I've done that. And then what I did with my last frames, just to add a little something else, is I've got a gold pen that I've just gone round that line there on the edge, so nothing terribly much. I suppose if I were doing this again on my own quickly, I might pop a different colour on there, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to go with this. So, and then because we've got these frames separately, the nice thing is we've got a little bit of manoeuvrability as to where we put them. You know, we can come in a bit, out a bit, do the hokey, whatever we fancy really. So there's one, and oh, where did I put them? Put them there, that's where I put them. And that is about that really. So I don't know how long I've been. I hope I haven't been too long, and I hope I haven't whittled on too much for you. I don't know, is there anything anybody wanted to know about any of this before I go? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And these frames are fabulously wonky as well. They've got a really, oh, just the cutest little shape going on. I cut them out straight with a cloth knife and ruler. But I just love the wonkiness of the lines. Right, there we go, that's the last one. It honestly, Alison, is so achievable. It's, you know, it's the products, isn't it? I mean, you know yourself, I know that you've made some amazing things with the Art by Marlene stuff, and I really hope you'll show us how to do that amazing sardine can you did. It was awesome. I just, oh, if you haven't seen it, you need to look at Alison Horn's Instagram or Facebook page, and I think you've posted it on here as well, haven't you? The sardine can is just amazing. It's got this little 3D scene in it, and it's just something else. But anyway, there we go. That's that. You don't want it to stop just yet. Oh. Oh. Oh no, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much. And well, hopefully if they'll keep having me, I'll be back next week with something else, and I shall see you then. Oh, Alison, please do a live. Please, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but please, 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 please do a live of your sardine can. That would be amazing. That would be absolutely just out of this world. And I think you'd be brilliant at it. I think you'd be brilliant. The frames are from... They are from some Art by Marlene stamps, and these at the moment, as far as I know, somebody else might be able to say more, but oh, I'm not even showing you, I'm showing I've moved the camera. They're Art by Marlene stamps. This is the frame, and they are from, I got mine from That's Crafty, who I am affiliated to, but they sell Art by Marlene stuff individually, which is fantastic. And I know also Art from the Heart do in the UK, and I'm not sure about anybody else. I don't know if anybody else knows. I know Ho Chanda do, obviously, but if you want to buy it specifically, the Art by Marlene stuff, it's That's Crafty and Art from the Heart are the places in the UK that do it, and it's blooming lovely stuff. And these frames are just so handy for little projects. They're really good. But oh yeah, they should. Yeah, Marcia, they should be. They did have a good stock in, and they've got the rice papers as well with the lovely girls on, and some houses, because I'm off to the houses as well. They've got, you know, they've got the colourful rice papers. I don't know what I'm talking. I don't know if I'm talking to this one or that one. They've got the colourful rice papers, but they've also got the black and white ones that you can colour, which is rather good. Look, you can see already her face is drying, and those little extra marks are starting to fade. It is just the nature of the rice paper. It is just what it does. But yeah, I'm so glad you enjoyed, and so glad to be here with you. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. It's been lovely. And like I said, if they'll have me back next week, I shall be back same time next week, if they'll let me. So, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.